You're a wizard, Harry. I'm a what? If those 7 words don't give you a warm fuzzy feeling, you may want to click ahead, mere muggle. Hey, it's Emily from It's Gone Viral, and thanks so much for checking out the channel. As you may have guessed, we are venturing into the land of Hogwarts and ranking each of the 8 film adaptations of J.K. Rowling's legendary Harry Potter books from worst to best. And what better time to do it than in the run-up to the 20th year anniversary of the film franchise that stole our non-muggle hearts. Now, we are aware this is a subject many of you will feel very strongly about, and quite rightly, but we think this is a pretty accurate ranking. Then again, we may be biased. Of course, if you have a different list, we'd love to hear it down in the comments. We will of course then completely disregard it. Just kidding. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you don't miss out on all your favourite celebrity interviews and games. Right, grab your butterbeer and head to platform 9 3/4 because we are about to board the Hogwarts Express. Starting us off at the bottom of our list as the worst Harry Potter movie is the 6th instalment of the franchise, The Half-Blood Prince. Right, where do we start with this? Firstly, why the hell is it so dark? We don't mean tonally, we mean in terms of actual lighting. Obviously, we know that this is meant to represent the shift to the darkness that lives in store for the wizarding world. But come on, you spend most of the movie squinting. Secondly, one of the biggest mistakes the film makes is to concentrate on Ron and Lavender's relationship, instead of showing us all of Tom Riddle's memories that break down every single Horcrux that Harry has to find in the Deathly Hallows. And lastly, how could they cut Dumbledore's funeral? This is possibly the one scene that Potter fans can't forgive being overlooked. In fact, Evanna Lynch, who of course played Luna Lovegood in the series, recently admitted that she even spoke to the studio about taking a pay cut in order for Warner Brothers to find the budget to film Dumbledore's funeral, as she felt it was vital to give fans closure to the character. And we agree with her. Surely, Dumbledore's funeral was the perfect way to finish the movie, like it was in the books. Having said all this, there are certainly some redeeming qualities to the movie. Harry and Dumbledore's adventure in the cave was brilliantly done, and so was the memory of Dumbledore meeting Tom Riddle for the first time. But as we said, it feels like the studio decided to overlook some really key moments in the book that fans really enjoyed. And if they had included those scenes, Half-Blood Prince would be a lot higher up on our list. In at number 7, we have Chamber of Secrets. Let's just start off by saying there are some extremely iconic moments in the Chamber of Secrets. The assumption, and it's a fair one at that, is that everyone who sees this will have seen the first movie, so there's no need to pack in as much explanation of how the wizard world works, or about Harry's backstory, the scar, his parents, Voldemort, everything that sets him apart from the other pupils. Instead, we're introduced to the Burrow and the delightful Weasley clan. Ron throws up slugs, Harry's future Mrs. Ginny is a big part of the mystery of Tom Riddle's diary, and Dobby brings life to his many scenes. However, and this is a big however, lasting nearly 3 hours, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but if there's such a thing as too much Harry Potter, this is it. The length, along with the dark storyline of a giant basilisk petrifying a bunch of Muggle-born children, makes this film one of the least magical of the 8.
It's all right, Ginny. It's over. It's just a memory.
Coming in at number 6 is the first instalment of the Harry Potter finale. The decision to break up the final book into 2 movies was seen as a stroke of genius at the time, as it allowed Warner Brothers to cram as much into the final movies as possible, something that, as we've already covered, certainly wasn't the case in The Half-Blood Prince. So when it comes to judging the Harry Potter movies, the Deathly Hallows is always going to split opinions. Essentially, the first instalment exists to build up to the finale in part 2, which immediately puts it in danger of not hitting the highs that the finale does. On the one hand, there's a lot of aimless wandering around in part 1. For example, did we really need to see Harry and Hermione dancing? And if you thought that was weird, in the deleted scenes, there is literally a scene where Harry and Ron try to kill a rabbit. Okay. On the other hand, the sequence where Harry leaves Privet Drive for the last time and takes to the sky with the remaining members of the Order of the Phoenix, the events that take place in Malfoy Manor resulting in Dobby's death, and the tale of the three brothers are also a perfect reflection of the source material in the books. So we think that the Deathly Hallows Part 1 is the definition of a mixed bag, and that's why it's at number 6 on our list. Let's be honest here, the 5th book in the Harry Potter series, The Order of the Phoenix, is a bit of a slog, isn't it? And because of this, the movie adaptation is usually considered as one of the worst movies in the franchise. Now we're here to say that yes, whilst it certainly isn't the best in the franchise, we think you also have to consider how David Yates managed to make a very watchable movie from some very dull source material. The Order of the Phoenix is the first foray into the wizarding world since the return of Lord Voldemort, and as such, there is an awful lot of information and new characters that the film needed to include. And even though, truthfully, the movie doesn't really pick up until its third act, the fiasco at the Ministry of Magic, resulting in the death of Sirius Black, and the battle between Dumbledore and Voldemort are two of the strongest and most iconic sequences in the whole of the franchise. It's also worth noting that Imelda Staunton and Helena Bonham Carter both turn in superb performances as Dolores Umbridge and Bellatrix Lestrange, and these performances are two of the most beloved in the Harry Potter movies. Coming in at number 4 is Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone if you're watching from across the pond. This one will always hold a special place in our hearts. Admittedly, it's probably the nostalgia that puts Philosopher's Stone so high up on our list, introducing us to the OG cast we'd follow as they grow up on the big screen over the next 10 years. When we say it's sometimes best to do things by the book, Philosopher's Stone is all the proof you need. Chris Columbus's decision to stick pretty closely to the novel paid dividends. We were treated to details that became rare in the franchise's future films. Moving staircases, talking portraits, and of course, nearly headless Nick. Columbus deserves immense credit for his vision in building the wizarding world. He truly created the Hogwarts that we all read about in the books, and the amount of respect he showed the characters and world is undeniably magical. And to be quite honest, without the superb blueprint of Columbus's Philosopher's Stone, the Harry Potter franchise and legacy could have looked and felt very different. Also, can we take a moment to appreciate how perfect Richard Harris was as Albus Dumbledore? And let's not forget that The Philosopher's Stone is also the movie that gave us Hermione's most iconic line. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Ultimately, it set the bar ridiculously high and prepared us for all the greatness that was to come from the Harry Potter franchise.
I'm going to bed before either of you come up with another clever idea to get us killed. Or worse, expelled.
She needs to sort out her priorities.
Next up at number 3, it has to be Deathly Hallows Part 2. Let's face it, the filmmakers faced a pretty gargantuan challenge with this film. Getting the right balance between the action-packed scenes we have all come to love and paying homage to the films that have come before with all the emotional payoffs they deserve. In stark contrast to its highly disappointing other half, Deathly Hallows Part 2 keeps you on the edge of your seat. The acting is something else, and the cinematography is stunning. It brings the Harry Potter franchise to a satisfying and suitably magical conclusion. This film is an epic ending to an epic story, and we think the filmmakers did the book justice with their visual creation of the Battle of Hogwarts, the death of Nagini, the heartbreaking approach to Snape's memories, and of course, Voldemort's long-awaited death.
Lily. After all this time. Always.
This is probably the one movie that every Harry Potter fan has an opinion on. Some love it and think it's one of, if not the best in the series. Others think it is one of, if not the worst. It also poses a question that will no doubt puzzle film scholars from now until the end of time. Why is there so much hair in this movie? One of the biggest annoyances some Potter fans have about the movie is how much it strays away from the events of the book. However, when you consider that the Goblet of Fire is 636 pages long, practically double that of its predecessor, The Prisoner of Azkaban, we feel this adaptation picks up pretty much all of the essential moments. And also, let's be honest, it's a very enjoyable addition to the franchise. From the immense scale of the production design to the moments of comic relief like the Yule Ball and the perfect casting of Brendan Gleeson as Mad-Eye Moody, we feel that the Goblet of Fire is essential in setting up the darker and moodier tones for the rest of the franchise. If you were to ask any Potter fan what their favourite scene is from the whole series, there's a very good chance the graveyard scene in the Goblet of Fire when Voldemort returns would be at the top of the list. And we think that, although the film adaptation does miss out on a lot from the book, the build-up to and the graveyard scene itself not only saves the movie, but it sets up the rest of the franchise in the perfect way. Director Mike Newell deserves an awful lot of credit for pulling this scene off, and that's why it's this high up on the list.
I'm going to kill you, Harry Potter. I'm going to destroy you.
After tonight, no one will ever again question my powers.
Okay, hear us out here, but we think The Prisoner of Azkaban is an absolute masterpiece. Yeah, you have to overlook the fact that Harry is practicing magic outside Hogwarts in literally the very first scene of the movie. And sure, maybe the scene in the Shrieking Shack is a little rushed and doesn't quite do the story of the Marauders' friendship justice, but all in all, we think that Alfonso Cuarón's take on the story is well deserved of its place on our list. There are many reasons why we love this movie, and probably we don't have long enough to go into, but we think the way it manages to separate itself from the cuddly, cozy, and almost safe wizarding world that Chris Columbus built so magnificently is why fans love it so much. Cuarón oversees the changes in the younger cast, from wide-eyed, excitable kids to more mature teens in such a clever and subtle way, and you can really tell that this movie was the blueprint for the rest of the franchise to explore the darker themes and events of the books. Not only this, the key introductions of Remus Lupin, Sirius Black, and especially the Dementors were vital to get right. And when you consider the studio also had to find a brand new Dumbledore, Cuarón was under a lot of pressure for The Prisoner of Azkaban to change the tone of the previous movies and to do the new characters justice. We also love the fact that this is pretty much the first movie where you get to see other parts of the wizarding world away from Hogwarts, such as Hogsmeade and the Shrieking Shack, and again speaks volumes of the way Cuarón was able to stamp his own look on his movie, whilst also staying true to Columbus's vision and feel of the first films. If you're still watching, you are a true Harry Potter fan. 10 points to Gryffindor, or whichever house the Sorting Hat put you in. Right, enough with the Harry Potter references now. Thanks so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching It's Gone Viral.